You can see the homework, right?
Yes.
Yes. This is the correct homework. If y equals 3.6x plus 10 and x is 5, how do we find out what y equals? So what's the first step we would do?
We write out the equation with the x equals 5.
So we want to plug 5 into x. And then what would we do?
We multiply 3.6 by 5 and then add 10.
Yep. Is everyone getting 28? You just
Yeah.
take 3.6 times 5 plus 10, and you can enter it all at once. Any questions so far? The second one, y equals 10x minus 17, and y equals 23. How do we find out what x is? So what's our first step here?
We plug 23 into y.
Yep. Since y is 23, we plug it in, and then we need to solve for x. Any questions on plugging it in? Okay. So if we plug the 23 in, what's the first step to solve for x?
We add 17.
Mm-hmm. We want to get this term by itself, and there's two terms on this side. Since this is being subtracted, we add it. Any questions on that part? So this is just things that would be before the course, the correct part. Since this is multiplied by 10, how would we get rid of it?
We divide by 10.
Any questions on that part? Okay. Oceanside Bike Rental Shop rents bikes for $14 plus $9 an hour. We want to know what is the y-intercept and the slope.
$9.
For which one? Y-intercept or slope?
The y-intercept.
Does anyone else agree with that or disagree? Remember, the slope is the rate of change, and the y-intercept is the fixed amount. And so since this is $9 an hour, this would be a rate. So this 9 would be the slope.
Oh.
That's okay. And the y-intercept is 14. So this one you're looking for a rate, $9 an hour, miles per gallon, some type of a rate. It doesn't ask you to explain them, but I want to go over that because I think it's the most difficult part. And so then I think it'll also help with the homework assignments C and D. When you're explaining the y-intercept is when x is 0. And x would be hours because it's per hour. This is our X. And cost would be Y. So if this is our hours, and we're using 0 of them, when no hours are used, the bike rental costs $14. So even if you don't ride the bike, you still have to pay the $14. The way that could happen in this case, if you put down that you want to rent the bike at a certain time and then you don't show up, it still has a cost. And a lot of places are like that. Well, it used to be Boardman Tennis Center in Boardman. You could rent a court, and it was like $25 an hour. But if you didn't show up, you still had to pay for that because somebody else could have used it. And that would be the same type of thing. You didn't actually ride the bike at all, but you reserved it, so you still have to pay that $14. Any questions on that? Okay. The slope, usually we look at it as a fraction, and it's the change in y over the change in x. Our y is cost to rent it, and our x is hours. So it's change in y over change in x. You want to look at x first. It's going up by 1. So each additional hour, the cost goes up by 9.
Are you doing C right now?
No. I wanted to explain the y-intercept and the slope just for practice. It's
Okay.
part of it, but
I was so confused. I was like, oh no.
no. So we were just explaining the y-intercept and the slope because you do have to do it on the next one, in the next section, for the regular homework assignment. And it's on the test, so I just want to practice. It's I probably just forgot to put it on here. I should have added it. So the slope, remember, it's a fraction, y over x, and then talk about x first. So each additional hour rented, the cost increases by 9. Any questions on that? The equation.
Before, I was gonna say before we start C, I just wanted to know because I'll get confused on this in the homework probably. When it says total cost, does that just mean 14 or is it including 14 plus 9?
It would be both, right?
Okay, so it would be this plus this equals C.
Right.
Okay.
And we're using a linear equation, y equals mx plus b. Or it says to use c and h. That way we know what the variables stand for. So we just need to plug in our slope and our y-intercept. Now it's up to you if you use x and y, or if you use c and h. I just think it helps do other questions if you have variables that have meaning. And so we set our slope. Remember, m means slope. And b is the y-intercept. So we just plug these in. This goes where the slope is. And this is the b, which is 14. So you could have written it like this, or you could have put So either one. If you use X and Y, it looks like this. If you use cost an hour, it looks like this. So remember, this was $9 an hour. So this increases depending on how many hours you rent it.
So on a quiz, can we, if a question is worded like this, say we have the same exact question on a quiz, we can do y equals mx plus b still?
Yes,
Okay.
I will accept either one. Any questions on that part? Okay. What is the total cost if the bike is rented for 11 hours? So first of all, you need to decide. We know we're using this, well, one of these two, whichever one you have. Then you have to decide where to put the 11 in. Do we put it in for H or C? So if we want to find the total cost of the bike if it's rented for 11 hours, where would we plug the 11 in?
And the h.
Yes, because it's hours, it goes in H. If you went this way, I recommend labeling X is hours, Y is cost, so then you know what they stand for. But if we use these, we know automatically. So we have C equals 9 times 11 plus 14, and we would just plug that into our calculator. When we plug it in, what do we get?
113.
Yep. So if we rent the bike for 11 hours, it'll cost $113. Any questions on that? If Joanne pays $86 for her rental, how many hours did she rent the bike? So again, we have to decide where we're plugging it in, depending on which one we're using. If she pays $86 for her rental, how many hours did she rent the bike? Are we plugging it in for H or C?
C.
C.
Because it's a cost, and we're looking for hours. So use the words to help you find them. Go ahead and find the number of hours. I don't know if I started recording. Oh, yeah.
I got 8.
8, yep. So the first thing we did was subtract 14 to get it by itself. 72. And then we want to get rid of the 9. Always do the opposite. We were adding, so we subtracted. Now we're multiplying, so we divide. And what you do to one side, you always do to the other, and so we get 8 hours. Any questions on that? Positive? If you did already turn in any of this and you want to resubmit, that's fine. It's marked to allow for 3, so you could resubmit it.
Did you want a paragraph summarizing all of that or no?
No, this was a co-rec. I just wanted each answer. Yeah, you don't have to write it out.
Yeah, I just wrote down she rented for 8 hours. Just so I remember it's 8 hours, not $8.
Yeah, you should put 8 hours. This one was $113. But you don't have to write out sentences on this one. of thumb, if it is a story problem, you should write a sentence. But I didn't on these ones, so I'm fine without. When there's blanks, unless it says explain, you just fill in the blank. So chapter 7 homework looks like this. This is an electric bill. It's the rocks. And usually it'll have your address. This is your meter reading, which will be either here or it's up in the top corner. It's usually in one of the corners. And then these are your fees. And I only took a few. There's usually a lot more. So the first thing we want to find is how many kilowatt hours is Dwayne's bill for this cycle. How would we find that?
We subtract six. What is it?
Mhm.
Yeah, the two amounts from October 2017 to September 2017.
Exactly. You want to subtract the meter readings because it's kind of like when you drive your car. If you had, say you had, I don't know, 25,000 miles on it, and then you're going on a trip, when you go to your trip and you come back and it has 25,500 miles on it, then you subtract the two to see how many miles you drove for the trip. Now, of course, they have trip buttons you could put on your car, but if you didn't use that, if you just use the miles, it's not going to only say the 500 you used. You have to subtract them to find it. And the same thing here. This just keeps going and going. And when the new people buy it, it doesn't go back to zero. It stays there and keeps going. And so you need to subtract them to see how much you use. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah, I'm actually I'm really confused right now.
Okay.
How many kWh is Dwayne's bill this cycle? What is kWh?
Kilowatt hours.
Oh.
And these are the number of kilowatt hours that were used. So just like miles in your car, it just continuously keeps them. And so we need to subtract to see how many we use.
Oh, so we're just finding how many he's used so far, not the price of them.
Correct. We're just finding how
Okay.
much he used for the month of October. So if we subtract them,
Oh, okay. And you said September is just it is. Oh wait, no.
September was, it was red in September, and then in October it was red again. And if we subtract them, it'll show us how many more we used.
Oh, okay. So it just added on from September to October.
Exactly. And that's why I compare it to the miles of a car, because your car is one you see a lot and it just continuously adds on.
So you're just subtracting it to find how much was added this month?
Exactly.
Okay.
And since 1058 was added, that's how many kilowatt hours you use. So if you subtract them, I believe, yeah, you get 1058. I don't know why I made that all capital. It shouldn't be. Kilowatt hours is not usually capital. Any questions on that part though? So by subtracting the meter reading from 2 months in a row, it tells you how much more you used. To write an equation where C is the cost when K kilowatt hours are used. You can use this, or you can use Y equals mx plus B. B is your fixed cost and M is your slope. Now if we look at the amount, hold on one second. Telling my daughter to shut the dogs up.
So what are, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So would our rate be 1058 per month?
for this month. Remember, you could use different amounts in different months. If your heating was electric, then in the winter you're going to use a lot more than you would in the summer.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean for like
For
the
this
equation's
month,
sake.
well, for this month, we don't need this value yet. To write the equation, you want to use the cost, not how many you use.
Oh, okay.
So for the slope, do we add 0.12 and 0.14, 0.05 and 0.23?
Yes, because the slope is a rate of change, these four are rates of change because they're times kilowatt hour. So it's 12 cents per kilowatt hour, 14 cents per kilowatt hour for transmission. Renewable energy is 5 cents every kilowatt hour. So these make up your slope. So we would add these up to get the slope. And if we add those up, we get 54.54.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our slope. So it's 54 cents for every kilowatt hour. B is the y-intercept, which is also a fixed cost. Notice 1052, it is customer charge and it's not per hour. It is an automatic charge every single month. So this is a fixed cost. This one's fixed. It is always $10.52. These costs depend on how many kilowatt hours you use. And so they make up your slope. Any questions on that part?
And our rate is our slope.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we would either have this one, or you could write it with y equals 0.54x plus 10.52. So this would have been fine also, either one. I guess I could put it right under it. So either one of these. Any questions on the equation? We said what the slope was, but we didn't explain it yet. So the slope is the rate, which is the 0.54. Now, instead of using, because this would be dollars, and since there's not a whole dollar, I would use 54 cents instead to explain it. And we place it over 1, because we have rise over run or change in Y over change in X. Remember, our Y is cost. And our X is kilowatt hours. So if we think about it, this one.
Do we have to write it out that way? Because when I did it, I just put down this means the customer pays 54 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, you do just have to explain. You could, that's not wrong. But usually you should also say what's happening to the X value. You wouldn't need this part, but you should have all of this. Because as the X value increases, so each additional hour rented, the cost increases by 9. So in this one, each additional,
Yeah, each additional hour rent, well, not rented, but used is 54 cents.
each additional hour used, or each additional, no, this one's not hours, kilowatt hours. Yeah, well, you could have put hours, but it's kilowatt hours. Each additional kilowatt hour, the cost increases by 54 cents. So you want to explain X and Y. The X value is almost always increasing by 1. There was a few examples we did in the other day where it was so small that we multiplied by 100 to make it make sense. But in this one, we wouldn't have to. So each additional kilowatt hour, the cost increases by 54 cents. Any questions on that?
So I guess to make my writing more satisfactory, instead of doing the ratios, I could add on. So like this means the customer pays 54 cents per kilowatt hour. This adds to the $10.52 per cycle.
Okay. That would work. The y-intercept is the $10.52, which we've already said that was the y-intercept because it's the b. When we're explaining the y-intercept is when x is 0. So then you want to think about what 0 is, or what x is. X was the number of kilowatt hours, so that means we're using 0 kilowatt hours. So how could we explain what this $10.52 is? How many kilowatt hours are we using to get the 1052? What it is, it's kind of like a startup fee. If no kilowatt hours are used, the cost is $10.52. So if you went on vacation and shut off your electricity, when you come back a month later, you're still going to have a bill for $10.52. To keep that line hooked up, to keep your warranty for your outside wires, you're still going to pay $10.52. So even though you didn't use any electricity, you still have a fixed cost every month of $10.52. Your cell phone at one time was kind of like this. You had a fixed fee, and then if you went over so many hours, then you had to pay an additional amount. Now there's unlimited minutes, so things have changed a lot. But at one time there was your fixed fee, and then you had so many hours. Once you went over that, then you had to pay extra amounts. Any questions on that?
Yeah, sorry.
Nope.
Again, for the writing, I did $10.52 as a fixed cost that will occur every cycle. This is in addition to the slope of 54 cents per cycle.
I do want somewhere in there that it's if you use no kilowatt hours, because I want to know that you understand that's when X is 0.
Okay.
Yeah, so somewhere in there you need no kilowatt hours used and cost is 1052. Those are the two things I would be looking for. In the other one, I would be looking for each additional kilowatt hour or 1 kilowatt hour every 1 kilowatt hours. And then increase is 54 cents. So those would be the words I would be looking for. Any questions on C or D? Okay. What is Dwayne's cost this month? So how would we find out what his total bill was?
You write the equation C equals 0.54, and then you put in 1058, and then add $10.52.
Nice, exactly. Yep. So what we did was we used our equation for the cost and we plugged in the kilowatt hours that he used. So you're just taking the 1058 and plugging it in for the K. Or if you use this equation, you're plugging it in for X because X is kilowatt hour. And then we just calculate this. Does anyone want to say what they got?
I got $581.84.
That's what I got. So you just multiply these two and then add the $10.52, and you should get $581.84 for the month of October. Any questions on that? So other than the two parts where we explained on C and D, you can just fill in the line. You didn't have to write any other part. Any questions on that? Okay. Answer the questions below using the tax chart. Some values may differ from the book since this is 2018. Okay, and we'll number the tax brackets so then you don't have to number them. It's just then it's easier for me. I can say which tax bracket is he in. So if Dirk Bentley makes 180,000 and L themselves this year, we want to find out how much he'll pay in taxes on that. Now, what you need to do is first find which tax bracket he's in. So which one would he be in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7?
Bracket.
I couldn't hear you. It broke off.
Sorry. Bracket 5.
Yes. He's in bracket 5. The reason he's there is 180,000 is between these two numbers. So you want to find where it's between. And it's between 157,500 and 200,000. So he's in this bracket. Any questions on finding the bracket? So what it says is he's going to pay $32,089.50 plus 32%, which 32% as a decimal would be what?
0.32.
32% of means multiply the amount over 157,500. So of the 180,000, we have to find out how much is over 157,500. If we take 180,000 and find the amount over.
Sorry.
That's okay. What is it?
I got 22,500.
So 22,500 is the amount over. That's what we pay 32% of. We don't pay 32% of the whole amount.
I did not know that.
So when you go over, you only pay the amount in that. So your first 9,525 that you make, you pay 10% of. And if you take 10% of that, that's what this is. Then the amount that goes into this bracket up to 38,700, you pay 12% of. And that's what this is. It's this plus 12% of this. And then each time then you're paying the higher percent, but you don't pay 32% of the whole thing.
Wait, so what does 22,500 represent?
Is the amount over the 157,500. So that's the amount over it.
Oh, that's how much more
Yeah.
he's
How
making.
much more put us into this bracket?
Oh, and then you're paying taxes on that.
Yep.
Almost like how they tax overtime.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's like a year-long overtime tax. That's kind of stupid though.
Yeah. The same thing with bonuses. They tax at a higher rate. I don't always mind that though, because then I get more back at the end of the year when my property taxes due. So it's kind of nice having that extra money. Okay, so we just calculate this, and you should get $39,289.50.
That's what I got.
Yep, that's a lot of money. Any questions on that? Okay, any questions on either one of the homework?
Wait, can you go back down? Oh wait, never mind. I see it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any questions?
It's crazy. I learned something today. I always thought it was 32% of how much you made.
Yeah. So when someone complains and says, "Oh, I worked that one more hour, what puts me into another tax bracket?" Technically, you're only paying that amount on that one extra hour.
Yeah.
It's not hurting you then. You're still making more money.
As long as you're making enough hours to compensate for the tax.
But any questions on that? Oh, why? Okay, someone asked about tax bracket 5. The reason I'm using the fifth one, you take the amount that was made, which in this case was 180,000, and it fell in here because it's between these two numbers. So if I had 50,000, 50,000 would be between these two, then I would have been in the third one. So you want to see which one your total falls between.
So this isn't a question, but just for understanding's sake, and earlier in the semester we had the what percent of this equals this, or how much of this will make me have this percent of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could actually find that with what we're doing, right? So you
Yeah.
could be like,
Mm-hmm.
how many more hours do I need to work in order to get into tax bracket X?
Yeah, you could do that.
That's cool. So like at the end of the year, if I really want to try and push and right next to the edge, I could be like 50 hours.
See how many hours will get you right to, but not into the next bracket. But luckily, going into the next bracket isn't too bad because your percent is still the ones below it. Any questions on that? You're welcome, Fiona. Any questions? I believe for the discussion board, you need to find a different tax table and then explain how you would use it. Any questions? This one's married filing separately. There's married filing joint, there's single, and there's a lot of different states, a lot of different ones to look at. Any questions? Okay. I want to show you the homework part of the project. I hadn't put it up yet because we didn't start talking about part 3, and I know that I'd get 100 emails asking for part 3. Okay, it didn't come up. There we go.
For the project, you mean the discussion board thing?
No, there will be a project that's due in a few weeks, probably 3 weeks. And the first thing due is this homework assignment. So this is due March 14th. And it's the start of a project. You're going to have to find qualitative data, quantitative data, and then this last group, which is a set of data points, which we haven't covered yet, but we'll talk about today. The first one, you know how I found the bar graph and the pie chart? You'll have to find a bar graph, a pie chart, and explain them. Quantitative data, you'll find I think a histogram, mean, median, mode, and range. So kind of like last week's assignment, only you're going to find your own data. So let's look at the first one. What is the qualitative data you're going to research? How will you gather the data? And why did you choose it? One student last semester chose sharks because it was around Shark Week. And so she would have put types of shark. And then what she did was she went on to, there's a lot of different places where they count the amount of sharks sighted during Shark Week. And so she took the first 25 sightings, what type of shark they were, and she kept track of that. So hammerhead, great white, whatever they were, you need 25. So she kept track of the first 25 sharks spotted. And she listed those, and then she made a bar graph and a pie chart for them. So types of sharks would be one possibility. One that's not very creative would be favorite color. Favorite animal.
Now, can our qualitative and quantitative data be different, or do you have to?
They have to be different.
Okay, so I can't do Shark Week and then do Shark Week again.
Okay. Yes, they can all go together, but they can't be the same data because one is a quality and one is a numerical value.
Yeah.
For Shark Week, they could go together. Well, let's stick with qualitative first. So you need to find 25 pieces of data. Now, types of sharks during Shark Week, usually there's not 25 different ones. There's so many great whites, so many hammerhead. You know what I mean? There's not 25 different sharks. You want to make sure that you think of a bar graph. If 25 different ones, it would just be straight line going across. So you want overlap or repeats. Kind of like when we did favorite colors. There was a lot that said red and blue, but not as many said green or yellow. And so then that bar graph went up and down. If you're finding like favorite animal, if I asked everyone in this room what their favorite animal was, I could get 25 different answers. And so if that's happening, you want to narrow it down. So then if you're going to do favorite animal, maybe you do bobcat, jaguar, cougar, lion, and tiger, if you stick in the cat family, and then ask them their favorite. So if you're getting too big of a variety, then you want to narrow it down and just pick 5 for them to choose. The other thing you could do is if a lot of them go into maybe 4 groups and then you have 5 that are just ones, you could put other. So you could do dog, cat, like if you ask them what pet they have, dog, cat, fish, bird, and then maybe somebody has a iguana, like the other ones are trailing off, well then you can put other.
Do you want us to avoid yes/no questions?
Correct. If you
Okay.
have a yes or no question, then you're only going to have 2 bars.
Yeah.
So you don't want yes or no, but you can make it multiple choice. I will put this document up on Blackboard as soon as we're done with class.
So for the qualitative data, you want us to do bar graphs and pie charts. What are we
Right.
doing for the quantitative data?
And that part doesn't come up until after because that'll be in the project. For this homework assignment, you just need to put what your data is going to be, how you're going to gather it, and then why you chose it. That other part will be on the project.
Okay, thank you.
No, when you're deciding how you're going to gather it, that's up to you. There's a survey called Survey Monkey, I think it is, and you can make a questionnaire there, and within 15 minutes you get all your answers. Usually people respond really quickly to them, and you only need the first 25 because you'll need 25 pieces of data for each. But if you don't want to do a survey, kind of like the Shark Week, she just went to a website and found the first 25 sharks that were spotted. So you don't have to do a survey. You can research your data. Any questions on that part?
So, So I could, if I did favorite animal, I could just like keep track on my phone and ask like a cashier at Walmart and then somebody random, somebody else. Or if I wanted to do like I forget what it's called. There's a word for it. If I wanted to do different research like on the internet, I could do how many days this week was it from 30 to 40 degrees and 50 to 60 degrees and do that.
Right. Be careful with a numerical value though. That should be a number 2.
Yeah.
So if you kept the high temperature for 25 days, you could do that. The only thing
So
is you need to do it for 25 days.
the difference between the qualitative and quantitative, I mean, for the weather, I could just say this many days it was this, like do a little bar graph, and then I can do the weather thing again, but put it in a pie chart in percents for the quantitative.
No, quantitative will not be a pie chart or a bar graph.
Oh,
But,
I'm sorry. I got it mixed up.
but what you could do for number 1 is sun, rain, snow, cloud, and each day which one it was forecasted. So you could even go so that like you don't want to do 25 days from now. You could do in the last 25 days what the forecast was, whether it was sunny, rain, snow, or clouds. And you can keep track of that for 25 days. And then for the other one, the same 25 days, the high temperature.
Yeah, I'm just confused because there seems, I guess in my head, there seems to be like a gray area between them. So quantitative is like a quantifiable measure of quantifiable measure of data, like in numbers. That would be my bar graph. And then qualitative, the difference being I make it percents.
No, qualitative is a quality. It doesn't have a number about it. This would be your bar graph and your pie chart. So if you were going to look up the weather in the last 25 days, you would mark sunny, cloudy.
What's the measure? Is there any measure?
No,
Oh,
that's why it's qualitative. It's a quality rather than a numerical value. Like when you look up the weather, let me see if I can bring up Alexa. Doesn't want to close. So if we look up so they tell us sunny, rain. It's not a numerical value, rain, clouds. And so for 25 days, you could keep track. I don't know if this is going by days. Yeah, it goes by days.
oh, so I can do
Sunny,
like,
sunny, cloudy, rainy, rain, snow. And so you would keep track of 25 days. So you could just use the average, like sun, cloud, rain, rain, snow. And you just keep track of those and list all of them.
okay, so I don't go any farther than that though, or else it becomes a measure.
Exactly.
Okay.
But then for the qualitative, that would be qualitative. For quantitative, the second one, you could do the high. The high was 41. The high again was 41. Here the high was 52. Or you could do the lows. The low in this one was 28. This went down to 21.
I could do brackets too, like 20 to 30 and 30
no.
to 40.
Mm-mm.
No?
No brackets. You want to keep them individual numbers because if you have a bracket, then you can't find the mean, median, mode, and range.
Oh,
So for
okay.
the numerical values, you don't want to. Now, one thing, let me bring the other back up. One thing that this would be nice, and I didn't think of this before. So then if we do the weather one, this would be, we keep track of how many sunny days, how many cloudy, how many rain, and how many snow. You would just, you can do little tick marks going with the last 25 days, how many there was of each. And I'm saying 25 because for your project, you have to have 25 of each. Now for this one then, you could do high temp. And so then you'd look up the last 25 days. And when you say, how are you gathering your data? I'm looking up the last 25 days, what the high temperature was. And you chose it. I think weather's interesting. So if it's something you're interested in, that would be your explanation. But I think this temperature one's a good one. So here we just count how many sunny, cloudy, rainy, and snowy days there were in the last 25 days. Here we take the high temp for the last 25 days or the low temp. Now here, you want a relationship, something that goes together. You think goes together. For instance, if the high is 50, is the low usually close to that, or do they have nothing to do with each other? So what I could compare here is high and low temp. I want to see if when the high, is the low also high with it, or do they have a relationship? I'm not sure, but there might be, because when there's a high of 50, the low's not going to be 4 usually. And so there's probably some type of relationship between the two. So it's one thing you could use, and then you'd be doing the weather would be the whole project. Now it does need to be creative. I think this is a cool idea, and it was your idea. If others copy it, then they wouldn't get all the creative points, depending on how they did it. But there is creativity as part of the project. This is just the homework assignment, so I know you're on the right track because the project's worth 100 points. Now, these do not have to all go together. You could do types of shark, then you could do temperature, and then you could do something completely different. It doesn't have to go together. Other possibilities for temperature, for the numerical value is height of basketball players. Anything numerical. So if you're going to do height of NBA players, you could do favorite NBA teams and ask 25 people their favorite team. Here, if you're doing NBA players' height, maybe you do height and number points made in the season. So you take the top 25 NBA players, you take their height and the number of points they scored, and see if there's a relationship with it. The taller they are, they score more points, maybe, maybe not. It might have to do with speed. My brother played basketball in high school, and he made a lot of baskets, but he was the shortest one on the team. He was just the fastest. So it's not necessarily height, but height has a big thing to do with it. So part 3 is finding a relationship between two pieces of data. And is there any questions? Okay. One person did it on tattoos. I forget what she did here. I think it was that she categorized the tattoo.
You can categorize them by style, like neo-traditional, traditional, watercolor.
There you go. That's one way. There we go. So you could do the style. I think she did, if it was a picture, if it was a character, if it was a flower, something like that. But the one you had said is a good idea too. But you can do it by style. You can do it by if there's a picture, if it's a character, plant, depending on what it is, just a design. And then here, she did it by cost of the tattoo. And then this one, she did length of tattoo and cost. Now, she thought the longer the tattoo, the bigger the cost. There wasn't a very strong relationship, and that is fine, because when you think of a tattoo, it is not just how big the tattoo is, it's how much design is in it, how much work's in the middle, how many different colors you use. So there's a lot more that went into it than just the size. But that's okay. It doesn't matter if it doesn't have a relationship. That's something she found out doing it, and she explained it in the project. Now here you're just stating what you're looking for and that you think there'll be a relationship. We'll talk more about that part of it next week, but just so that you can think about the data. A simple basic one that goes for that, the length of your arm span and your height have a relationship. They have a very strong relationship with each other. And so that's one thing you could do. One student did, he found the female pro basketball players, their height and their shoe size. And he did a relationship with that because your height and your shoe size is also a strong relationship. But it was kind of interesting because he did it with NBA players, and you know, their shoe size is not just easy access. He had to work to find each one individually. It wasn't all on one web page. Um, so have fun with it. Pick something you're interested in or something you're going into with your job, what you're getting your degree in, and use it. Is there any questions on that? Any questions on any one of the three? So like the first one, you want to explain everything, but then for the project, you'll have to find a bar graph and a pie chart. The second one, you'll have to find a histogram, mean, median, mode, and range. And then the last one's called a scatter plot, and that's what we do next week. But does anyone have any ideas and they're not sure if that's what they should go with? Or we're still thinking. Does everyone understand what you need for each of them?
Yeah, do we have to like submit what we're gonna do for you to like confirm it, or should we
Right,
just do it?
that's what this homework assignment is. It's confirming what you're going to do for the project. So
Uh,
this is just telling me what data, why you chose it, and how you're going to gather it. And so you'll write a paragraph for each of these. That's the homework assignment, and then you're going to take this and actually find the data for the project. So this is just explaining how you're going to do it, and then the project is where you'll actually do it. Any questions on that?
Oh darn, I was gonna do tattoos, but now everyone has that idea.
You could still do it. Make it creative. Do something. I think it's interesting. Maybe instead of length and cost, do something else. Like if there's a different way of measuring and the cost, or I think you could think of something else. The other thing when you do your projects, you're going to be submitting like a document and an Excel file, and students have made their documents very creative. One person did hers on flowers, I think. She used flowers throughout this. And so then she had her page with flowers with the words in the middle. It was kind of neat. So you can make it creative other ways also.
are we able to do more than 25? Because
Yeah,
I'll probably do like a poll on Discord for I don't want to give away the subject because if people will
right,
take it.
right.
But
I understand if you don't. And if you have a question on your subject but you don't want to give it out, I forgot to leave the chat open. I'm sorry. We're all stealing your ideas. I don't know why it says February 7th. It should say March 7th. I must have typed something wrong. But the homework assignment, the co-rec is due March 7th. You know what happened was when I go to click, it brings up the month, and I probably went right to the 7 instead of going to the next month. But I will correct that. So I was eating.
oh wait, is the project due the 14th, or is our submission for a subject due the 14th?
Okay. So this homework assignment is due on the 14th.
Which is just the submission for a subject?
Right. This is the submission for your subject. You have to put what you're thinking of, how you'll gather it, and why you chose it.
Oh, okay. I thought the whole thing was due the 14th.
No, the project will probably be due. I like to give extra time because it's 100 points and it's in your 40% weighted category. So remember, that carries a lot of weight, 40%. Students there was some who thought they just weren't going to do the project, and their grade dropped almost 2 grade points. So if they had an A, they were at a high C because they didn't do it. And then they turned it in and did it, and then they went back up to their A. So since it's in that 40% range and it's 100 points, because I think it's important, so you have to do it. I want to make sure that you have the right ideas first, because a lot of times what happens is, like if we go with sunny, cloudy, rainy, and snow, here temperature, and then they say they're going to use sunny, cloudy, rainy, snow, and the temperature. Doesn't work because this has to be both numerical. We haven't done much with it yet because we're doing it next week, but they have to be numbers. Think of a graph on the XY axis. You have to plot the points, and you can't go over sunny and then up 52 degrees. Doesn't work. It has to be an X and Y have to be numbers. So when you're thinking about this data, they have to both be numerical. This has to be numerical, and this has to be non-numerical. It's equality. Favorite color, favorite number, height and shoe size. Any questions on that? Go ahead. I don't think you'll miss. And it's recorded. But I really don't have anything else for today. I just want to make sure you understand what you need for your for this homework assignment, which will prepare you for your project. Is there any questions? So everyone understands what they have to do here. You don't have to do any of the graphs or anything else. It's just what's written here. The type of data, how you'll gather it, and why you chose it. If you don't want to do a survey, pick something you can look up online. One thing that's interesting, I don't know how we get into the qualitative, but the level of hurricanes. So you could take the last 25 hurricanes and what speed they were at. That's a one for number 2. If you want to use that again here, you can take the speed of the hurricane and the amount of damage, because they give you a price on it, how much damage it costs, depending on what you're interested in.
So are we gonna turn like the pie charts and everything in through Excel then?
Right. When you do your project, you will attach an Excel file, or if you use Google Graphs, then you would, whichever you use is fine. But yeah, you'll submit the Excel file and a Word document or a PDF or a Google, whichever one you're using to type your paragraphs in. Now, some people do under Excel, you can type in and put sections in there, or you can write it as one paragraph at the end that you write on Word. Either way is fine.
Can we make like a little presentation? Like I would like a slideshow. I think it would be like easier to set up. Or do you want it written in like an essay form?
I am fine with a slideshow. I think that's awesome. Yeah. That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll make it into a slide.
Yeah, I think a slideshow
I
would make
like
it
that.
easier so you can break up the data, and I think it would be able to give more of an artistic feel to it, so you actually have to kind of put some effort into it. And I think I mean, that's just an easier format for me because I'm not like the strongest essay writer. So it would be better to break up my words and explanations.
I like that. Yes. In fact, everyone's going to do a slideshow. I like that idea. That's really good because then it's easier to make the creativity, especially if you're using ones that we've already used, but then your slideshow can be really creative. So then you can still get those creativity points if there's something you can't think of. And so then if you use these ideas or someone else's ideas, I like that. See, before we were in class, and so it was easier to bring your ideas into class, and some people talked about it and stuff. But with a slideshow, I like that. And I think that would be good because then you can show your graphs in between each one and have a paragraph that explains it, or you could talk. It's up to you. Okay. Now for this though, you would just turn in a paper with the paragraph, 3 paragraphs. But for the project, we'll put it in slideshow form.
So this is the project, or
Oh,
is
this
it
is the
project?
homework for the project. Someone asked about the qualitative data. Okay, so when you're finding the qualitative, you want to think of something that's a quality. Letter grade on a test is a quality. A type of shark, hammerhead, great white. I don't know why I can't think of any of the other sharks, but those types of sharks. Favorite color, red, blue, yellow. An animal, something that doesn't have a number with it is quality. Hair color, eye color.
A type of car.
A type of car, yes.
And that you could do your whole project over a type of car, like their MPG and the like relationship between what kind of car it is and what mileage they get.
Yep. Now what you have to be careful, so this would be type of car. I'm going to make another color. Oh, that's bad. Type of car. So then this could be miles per gallon. But then down here, it couldn't be type of car because that's not a number, but it could be miles per gallon and cost of car. You could see, I don't know if there'd be a relationship with how much a car costs and what the miles per gallon are, but there might be.
Could you
And
use
so
like the
that's
year they
something
were
to look
made?
at. Say that again?
Can you use the year they were made, maybe?
Yeah, miles per gallon and okay. Or you could do cost of car and year made. So you could do it either way. You can stick with miles per gallon and find average miles per gallon for cars here and the type of car here. Now, when you're doing type of car, there's a lot of different cars. So if you're asking 25 people their favorite car, you could have 25 different answers. So either you want to maybe ask them Corvette, Trans Am, Lamborghini, like pick the 5 cars and say which one of these is your favorite, or go with brand because there's not as many. General Motors, Honda. So you could do that. So if you're finding that you're getting way too many different answers, then have it multiple choice instead where they have to pick from 5. Because you don't want 25 bars, it'll just be a straight line. Any questions on that? What about the type of car makes it qualitative? It would be a rendezvous Corvette, Trans Am, well, Mustang, that's what's qualitative. It's the name of the car, it's not a number. Exactly, one person said the lack of it, it's not a number. So it would be the type of the car, like, yeah. Corvette. And then their miles per gallon would be the numerical. And then here it has to be two numbers that you want to compare. Right. So the qualitative has to be something that is not a number. There's a few things that are numerical that are qualitative, but I don't want you to do them. They are zip code, phone numbers, social security number, because putting them in an order doesn't have a significance. 44512 and 44511, putting one before the other, it doesn't make any difference. But miles per gallon, which is, if one is 15 miles per gallon and one is 26 miles per gallon, putting them in an order or finding the average makes sense. Any questions on that? So for next Sunday, you just need to know what type of data you're going to use and answer these questions for the project. You don't start the project because we want to make sure they make sense first. Any questions on that? I'll bring the project up so you can see it. And is there any questions? So this is the only thing due next Sunday. Everything's always due on Sunday. The project. Now it'll be a little bit different because I haven't updated it yet. So it will be changed a little bit. So this will change. This will be. It'll be something like that. But like the first one, the qualitative data, which was the types of cars or sunny, rainy, windy, you'll have all of your data in the spreadsheet and you're going to find, and here it says a bar graph and a pie chart. And then you're going to explain everything. Then you're going to gather your quantitative data, and notice it says 25 pieces. So if you do a survey and you get 100, if you don't want to do all of them, just take the first 25. But this one will be in your numerical data. You'll have to find, here it says mean, median, mode, and range, and a histogram. And then you'll answer the questions that go with it. For the pairs of data, we haven't covered this yet, but you make two columns and you graph what's called a scatter plot. And then you find, well, all of this information, but we'll learn about this next week. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about it today, but this we haven't covered yet. It's worth 100 points. Showing effort, creativity, and turning it in on time is 10 points. Of the 3 sections, the 3 sections are 30 each. So 30, 60, 90, and then 10 points, mostly creativity, that you put in effort, and then create a slideshow with your information.
Are we presenting this?
No. I don't want to, I don't know. We'll see how much time that would take. I don't think we'll present it.
Could we present it for bonus points?
I don't think anybody needs bonus points except the ones who probably aren't going to do this anyway, so. But I will put this up, but just remember that we haven't covered this last part yet. And I gotta fix the due date. I will definitely put the homework one up so you have it and you're thinking about it. When we're talking about that third one, and you're looking at data, a lot of times if there is a relationship with your data and you find all of your points, you're going to see a graph kind of like this. And so maybe this is height and arm span. And notice how I took so many people, I found their height and their arm span. And the relationship will go up because it's a pretty strong relationship. The taller you are, the longer your arm span. Now what we do is the graph, the Excel, we'll put what's called a trend line. And it falls between the data. That way then, if we pick a height, we can use that line to find the arm span or approximate arm span. But it finds a line in between it that gives you a relationship between your data. And then it gives you an R squared value, which is between -1 and 1. Oh, 0 and 1, sorry, it's R squared. We use R squared in this class instead of R. So it's between 0 and 1. The closer to 1, the stronger this relationship. The closer to 0, the weaker the relationship. And that's what we'd be talking about in the next class. Everyone can see my drawing, right?
Yes.
Okay. My cursor was showing a thinking, and so I didn't know if it was showing. And so it'll have height and arm span has a relationship. It would be close to 1, maybe 0.89. And so the closer this is to 1, the stronger this relationship, the closer to the 0, the weaker. And so if we had a scatter plot, for instance, the tattoo, the length of the tattoo, and the cost, this data might have been spread all over because maybe this one here wasn't very big but had a lot of detail, and then another one. And so it could be when you plot your points for the length and the cost, it could be spread all over. When that happens, your trend line is usually horizontal and the R squared is 0. So the weaker the relationship, the closer to 0 it is. Your data spread all over, it would be 0. If your data ends up all being on the line, then your R squared is 1. And so in the next week, we are going to take data and I'll show you how to make the graph, how to find the line and the R squared, and explain how to find the relationship and what it means. But for your project, then that's why they both have to be numbers, because you're going to plot those points on a graph. There's one we'll do with the height of the waves and the number of surfers, because the smaller the waves, the less surfers. The higher the waves, more surfers. And so there's a relationship within that. So you're finding two numerical values, and then we're going to see if there's a relationship. This reminds me of correlations in psychology. Yes, it does have, psychology uses the same correlation to see if there's a relationship between different numerical things.
Awesome.
Okay, is there any questions on just the homework part of the assignment, not the project part? Everyone understands what type of data they have to think about? Okay, so use something of interest or something you're getting into. If you're in art, use something with that. If you're into music, use that. One person did K-pop band. For the qualitative, it was favorite K-pop band. Numerical was, I think she did how many people were in each band, because some of them get pretty large. I don't know, maybe she did number of people on album sales or something for the last one. But you could definitely find, there's lots of things you can find. Favorite artist, number of albums made and how much they make in a year. Any questions? Probably did use BTS, but there was a lot I didn't know that they used. I probably only know 2 people. Any questions?
Yeah, so that is the actual project, not the submission of what we're going to do.
That last one that was showing was the project, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just making sure.
Yeah, nope, that's fine. So for this one, you just use that homework for the project, and you just write a paragraph for each one. And I will put that up as soon as I leave, or as soon as we leave. Any questions on anything?